Goldfinger. He's the man with the Midas touch.
No, Mr. Bond.
You talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to buy.
Yes.
Mr. Goldfinger.
Good morning. Good morning.
Goldfinger personal injury law. So what's your takeaway? First of all, nobody in Peterborough saw the tribute to Dwayne Casey. So tell us about that first.
The game, I mean, you can't win them all. And I'm glad Dwayne Casey and the Pistons got the win. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of the Raptors, but it's a good kind of revenge game and a good learning experience. You don't go up by 20 points. The Raptors were up by 20 points at some point in the second half. You don't go up by 20 points by being a bad team. You go up by 20 points for a good reason. You're playing good basketball, and for whatever reason, they took the foot off the pedal, and they still haven't learned how to win yet as a team. And I think that's been a pattern, even though their record right now is 12 or 13-2. I don't know, whatever it is. 13-2. They've had a lot of games where they're up by 20 or 25, and then that lead is shrunken down to single digits. That's because this team hasn't yet learned how to win and properly stomp on their opponent's throat, and that takes time. You'd rather the team have these losses in November as opposed to April.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is that you've got guys like Rod Black, who's on this program yesterday, and said that the Raptors, this incarnation of the Raptors right now, are potential NBA champions.
Yeah.
I don't know about put them against Golden State, because hands down, everybody south of the 49th parallel says the Golden State Warriors are once again the hands down winner. But
they're in the conversation.
But again, when you talk about not putting their foot in their throat and going for the kill, that is a big part of being a good team, especially in the postseason. You need to be able to take those leads and be able to keep those leads in your hand and not relinquish them.
I agree. It'll all come down to Kawhi, and I don't think we're yet seeing... I think we see glimpses of how excellent and dominant Kawhi Leonard is, but I still don't think he's at 100%. I think he's at 80%, and I think a good example last night, I mean, that was his first clutch, I got the ball in the last seconds of the game, let's win the game possession, dating back probably 2 years, because he didn't play all last year. So I know a lot of people in Peterborough didn't see the game last night because of the outages, but Kawhi Leonard had the ball with 10 seconds to play, and he kicked the ball off his foot totally unintentionally, and that's the ball game right there. And he's got to be put in more of those situations and got to get his bounce back and his timing back, and I don't think it's back yet. I think we will see it back after the All-Star break, and I think we'll really, if this team has been clicking now to this point in time, if they're going to succeed, I think we'll really see them click in that second half of the season.
Brian, we know what you just alluded to, and what we expect to see or hope to see from Kawhi at some time. We know about Lowry and what he can do. He's done it for seasons here. Has there been an unexpected surprise early on in your mind on this Raptors team in terms of what they've kind of brought to the table?
The obvious surprise is Pascal Siakam. He just won Eastern Conference Player of the Week. But the less obvious surprise, I would say, is the lack of production from a guy like CJ Miles, who came into camp, they say, in the best shape of his life, and he's just been dreadful. And he sat out last night's game with some sort of problem. Another pleasant surprise, back to pleasant, is Serge Ibaka's play. It's been fantastic. He's been putting up career highs in terms of efficiency and points, and I think moving him from the 4 position to the 5 has been a big deal. An unpleasant surprise, I'd say, would be the play of Lorenzo Brown, Norman Powell, and Malachi Richardson. Now, these are all lower pieces on the totem pole, but Lorenzo Brown, I saw him play live. He's a former G League MVP, and he was dominant in the G League. You just don't win MVP by chance. I don't think he's been particularly good. Norman Powell, it's unfortunate he's out. That's that. Monroe, nobody saw the game last night. He had a great game last night off the bench. I think he chipped in with like 18 or 19 points in limited minutes. He was excellent.
So we'll see how things play out going forward for the Raptors. 12-3 right now, by the way. It's
12-3. There you
go. We were one game ahead of us. Maybe we'll see a 13-3 after the next game.
Not too shabby. 12-3. I think the Raptors will take that.
You take it any time. I mean, this is a team that historically they'd go the other way. It'd be 3-12, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
By the way, Dwayne Casey, Sid Sixero tweeted out last night, if the person standing next to you is not giving you a standing ovation, you're allowed to drop kick him. That was his line last night. But, and Rod Black said it yesterday, so I'd like to formally announce now that Rod Black's not allowed back on this program because he agreed with you about Dwayne Casey, whether or not he should have been let go or not.
Letting him go was the right decision.
Yeah.
You need a new voice. Yeah.
Well, I still disagree. But.
Well, he got his revenge game, and but you said it the last time I was in here. We're going to really judge this team by the way they perform in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right now, we're not even close to the playoffs. They got to be grooving the right way, and let's see how Nick Nurse performs. Let's see who's right.
What do you, in your opinion, feel that Nick was outcoached last night by Dwayne Casey?
I guess so, because all their plays coming down the stretch were all isolation plays. You really didn't see any set offense. And I think Dwayne Casey drafted 2 amazing plays, out of bounds plays with really no time. And then also the decision of putting Stanley Johnson in the second half onto Kawhi Leonard really changed the game. So I'd agree with that statement that he was outcoached, but I'd rather my guy get outcoached in November as opposed to April.
There we go. Brian Goldfinger, of course, of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law here on the regulars. Paul Rellinger as well. Leafs tonight, by the way. Leafs and Sharks and Pete's and Owen Sound Attack. So it's going to be a busy night here on the radio. As
is Doug Ford coming in to drop the puck?
Dougie Ford's coming to town tonight.
That's nice.
He's going to drop the puck at Special Olympics night tonight at the Memorial Center.
Yeah,
they were probably wise to have not have the throw a puck night tonight. I'm guessing. You don't want to mix that up on the schedule, right?
I'm not going to discuss that because I saw some black SUVs earlier, and I have my own problems I deal with. Of course, so it's going to be a busy night here on the radio. Again, the Raptors come away with a loss last night, but looking to see if they can pick that up. Who do they play next? I can't remember. I hadn't looked at the schedule yet to see who they play.
They play Boston on Friday.
Boston, okay.
Yeah, tough game.
And that's going to be another tough game, too.
Yeah, Friday night, I think, tomorrow night.
So we'll see how that plays out. Couple things I wanted to get to. We actually talked about before you came in. I was a little hyped up, as I always do around this time of year, because the festive time of year always makes me a little more angrier than usual. But we were talking because there is snow coming into the region. Depends on who you ask. Between 5 to 10 centimeters expected. Some areas are going to get 10 to 15. I'm seeing Ottawa probably anywhere from 10 to 15. Georgian Bay. They always get at least 800,000 centimeters.
Yeah,
of snow.
it's like another world.
And that's
there.
in August
really
or whatever. But we were talking about liability, and I think one guy knows more about liability when it comes to a school bus company deciding they're going to pull the buses off the road because of inclement weather. And I understand that we're kind of focusing on the city itself. I mean, I understand there's issues in the county. So you've got these side roads that are have no gutters or anything else, or no signs of life except for the coyotes. But when you look at trying to transport kids to school, the liability to take these buses off the road and then replace them with more cars because dad and mom have to drive Junior to school now.
They don't have to, but a lot of them do.
They should be.
A lot of them do, yeah.
They should be. Brian Goldfinger did not get where he got from against the school.
Yeah, Brian did not take many. He wouldn't be sitting here today.
So let's talk about liability when it comes to pulling these buses off the road. And again, I assume that you've probably dealt with maybe a couple or
I've dealt with bus accidents, whether it's a common transit bus, Peterborough Transit, or a school bus, or a coach bus. I can't speak on behalf of the transit companies in terms of what they do or don't do, but in their judgment and estimation, they don't deem the roads to be safe, so they don't want to put any of their passengers at risk, and frankly, they don't want to put their company at risk. I can understand that, really irritates a lot of the parents out there, and understandably so, but in the bus's best business estimation and safety estimation, they just want to keep their vehicles off the road. And like you said, the conditions in the counties and more remote areas can get pretty bad, and it just takes kind of a few patches of ice which haven't been treated by the county or municipality to send the bus flying. So that's their business decision, and that's their liability decision, and I'm nobody to comment on that.
And I was saying, we were discussing it earlier, but in fairness to the bus companies and the people that have to make that decision, it has to be made well in advance of the buses going out. And a lot of times we're sitting there at home at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get the storm that was forecasted.
Right.
Well, that's not the bus company's fault.
Right.
They can only act on the information they have at the time. and they err on the side of caution, as they should.
Well, that's the nice thing, I guess, about the internet these days. So I remember being a kid and waking up and needing to listen to the radio, like, is my bus being canceled? Is my bus being canceled? And nowadays you can just go on Twitter or on the internet to kind of find out what's going on. So getting out that information is a bit easier, but I certainly understand the frustration of mom and dad. It's very frustrating.
And especially in a two working parent world now. Like when I was a youngster, if school was ever canceled, which it never was, like ever. But if it was, mom was at home.
That's why your generation is tougher than this generation. And this generation is commonly referred to as the snowflake generation. So
I'm tough.
There you go.
And don't forget the 800 miles uphill both
back and
ways.
forth, back and forth. Yeah, 5 feet deep. It was ridiculous.
Right.
We're looking at right now on our TV, we're seeing areas like Toronto getting ready for some inclement weather. Could be 5 centimeters, could be 10 centimeters. One blog that you had authored there, Brian, just recently was the winter do's and don'ts, especially when it comes to slips and falls and going out about your business on a regular basis. What was some of the big points that you came to us?
Well, if there's going to be 5 centimeters in the city of Toronto, everyone should expect the mayor of the city of Toronto to call in the armed forces.
Oh, here we go. This guy.
To get prepared. Yeah. In any event, look, it's getting cold out there, and what I tell people with slip and fall claims, number one, if you're the victim of a slip and fall, don't assume that there's a video camera that's picked up your slip and fall. There are cameras all over, but those cameras, number one, aren't necessarily working. Number two, aren't necessarily pointing, if they are working, exactly to where you fell. Or number three, the footage might get destroyed or erased. So don't assume everything. It's best to get a photo or a witness to corroborate your version of the events that you did slip and fall on a patch of ice. Unlike a car accident, if a car accident happens out here on George Street, the police will be called and they'll do their proper investigation and write everything down, and the police's word is the police's word. That doesn't happen in a slip and fall case. You don't slip and fall on George Street and then the police come by and they write down fell on a large patch of ice. That just doesn't happen. The ambulance might write it down if it's that serious, but it's just not going to happen. So gathering that source evidence right away is very important, because me as a lawyer, I can't go back in time. If you come call me, a few days later, that patch of ice might be gone. Those witnesses are probably gone. It's very difficult for me to recreate that. I don't have the same technology that they do have on CSI. Not everything's like TV.
Brian, with this particular snow event we're talking about for tonight, like, we know well in advance it's coming, right? We've got lots of warning. What's the situation where, and this happens many times, where you have that unexpected storm or ice or a flash kind of
like we had
event?
We had on Saturday night where the 115 off ramp coming on the Parkway, there was about 5 cars that all went into a ditch, and then an ambulance got rear-ended because it was all slippery.
Yeah, you have those flash events, and like, maybe the business owner who owns the sidewalk in front of or is responsible for the sidewalk, or the homeowner who's responsible for their sidewalk, just hasn't had the time or to be able to react and be responsible. What's the window there, or what happens there?
So for some things, like a snap storm or a snap freeze, there's something called an act of God. So you're driving on the 115, and then there's just blackout conditions, nobody can see, and then there's a big pile up. Well, whose fault is it if everyone's got snow tires and everybody's driving the limit and everybody pulls over and puts on their flashers? You can't stop it. Sometimes it's just an act of God, and we can't blame anybody. That's just what happens in Canada. The same may apply for slip and fall situations. But in a slip and fall situation, if you're the private property owner, particularly for a commercial business, and you're inviting members of the public onto your premises, onto your property, you have to show that you have a reasonable system in place of, number one, inspection, and number two, maintenance. That means keeping logs, keeping records, sanding, salting on regular intervals. So in the event of one of these act of God situations, you can then go back and say, look, I sand and salt every day at 9 a.m. and 5 o'clock, and I realize that there are people coming out regularly, and I do my best to look after their safety. But a private property owner will suffer in the event that they can't show those log records or maintenance records or inspection records. That's where the court will draw an inference. Well, if this person is inviting members of the public onto their premises and not regularly inspecting them or maintaining them, then chances are they aren't doing that. Then chances are that the premises are not safe, and then we're going to have to take the plaintiff's word for it.
I mean, being devil's advocate, I go to work in the morning, and 8 o'clock. No one's home during the day. There's an event during the day.
Right.
There really hasn't been an opportunity for me to do anything about that ice on my on my sidewalk and that, like does that make me immune to any kind of liability?
Well, on your sidewalk, that may be, depending on what the bylaws of your municipality say, it may be the city's property.
Right. Okay.
Your property is different. So your property, if you know the postman or something along the lines, you're expecting people to come by and you're not sanding and salting, that's on you. But at the end of the day, if you have homeowner's insurance, your homeowner's insurance will take care of it. That's why if you own a home, it's a good idea to have a homeowner's insurance. God forbid one of these bad things happens on your property.
Can you own a home without insurance? I mean,
there's some people who live very dangeously who own it 100%.
I guess. Well, it's a requirement of banks, though, correct?
Right. If you have a mortgage, most banks require homeowners insurance, but some people live dangerously and may own their home outright.
Like you and me, Grant. We're living on the edge,
and they let their policies lapse, etc. And there we go.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nasty game of Russian roulette, right there.
Well, this opens up the other question I have. So, say I'm a pizza delivery guy, and I was using that because maybe I was once.
You're a pizza delivery guy.
I was a pizza delivery guy once upon a time, but I end up at Rally's house to deliver him his anchovy extra anchovy pizza,
anchovy and pineapple pizza, delicious,
fantastic, can't wait,
great combo.
But it's been I slip and fall on his driveway, going to his door.
So in the example of the pizza delivery guy, that opens up the question is, does it fall under workers' compensation or not? Because you're in the course of your employment. And then the question is your pizza delivery company a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 employer? And then you have to go through, if it's Schedule 1, generally you'll have to go through the WSIB field. And going through WSIB, it acts as a shield to litigation. You can't do both. You can't both claim workers' comp or WSIB and also sue. You can only do one or the other. And whether or not you can sue depends largely upon, number one, the party you're suing. Example, a Schedule 1 employee cannot sue another Schedule 1 party. And number two, whether or not the WSIB allows you to sue. And that's generally called up to the WSIB. In a lot of examples, you have independent contractors who are on deliveries who are, I'll give you an example. The person who delivers a flyer to your door. Many times these are independent contractors without WSIB coverage. In those examples, they can sue. So in one example, you can't sue. In another example, you can sue. Does it make it fair? No. Unfortunately, that's just the law.
So at the end of the day, a good rule of thumb is if you're a business owner, if you're a homeowner, you have any property at all that you're responsible for, do your due diligence, maintain it as much as you possibly can, and if possible, keep a record of that maintenance.
I suppose keeping the record of the maintenance, again, is very difficult for your common homeowner. But, sanding and salting is certainly important. And in the event that one of these delivery guys slips and falls on your property and sues you, your insurance company will take care of it. And they will go into whatever sanding or salting efforts you made, and the cards will land where they land.
When it comes to we were talking about sidewalks, I'm trying to find the bylaw as to what the bylaw here is in Peterborough in regards to making sure that you've maintained not only your driveway but also your sidewalk. But in most cases, usually within 24 hours of a situation, you have to have your sidewalk cleared up.
In most cases, that's a very good rule of thumb to clear it up, yes.
Yeah, so, but again, as soon as you can get to it, do it.
Yeah, sometimes, though, I remember when my wife and I were living in London and there was snow up to the door, and my wife was literally trapped in the home, and I wasn't around. It's a scary time. And sometimes for many seniors, it's just not possible to shovel all that snow. So it needs to be done certainly within reason, and Mother Nature will certainly play their tricks on you, but sometimes it's just not possible. That's the reality, just because of health circumstances, etc.
Take care of each other.
Yeah, look after your neighbors.
Yeah.
And then also on snow shoveling as well, if we're on that topic, you got to watch out, because you got a lot of warriors who think that they can do all this, and then they end up having a heart attack. Right? It's true.
This is why I don't shovel snow.
Yeah, you got to be careful, because for many, it's like their first heavy activity, and they feel good out in the cold, and it's a nice fresh air, but they don't realize how hard their heart is pounding and how heavy that snow is, or how long they've been doing it, and you think to yourself, I'll just get one last shovel, get this cleared out. And the next thing you know, you're in the hospital. So be careful.
Yeah, take frequent breaks, and if you must do it, and just monitor yourself.
It's in closing. One thing I wanted to ask about was last night with the power outage, because of course there's many people still haven't figured out how to always stop works. But of course, but then you throw like the snow in the middle of that. So there's if I get into a collision with Paul. Either during a blackout where there's no lights and one of us is in the wrong of going through the intersection we shouldn't have, wasn't our turn, or again you throw maybe even some icy conditions in there in the middle of it because it's during a big snowstorm. How difficult does that make your job?
It's very difficult. Not every case on liability is as clear as 100% of liability rests on one driver. In many cases, it might be a 50-50 situation. And in that case, where it's a 50-50 situation, the plaintiff will still have a case, but their award will be reduced by 50% or the degree upon which that they're responsible.
There we go.
Yeah.
Brian Goldfinger, of course, where can people find you?
Visit the website, goldfingerlaw.com, or you can certainly email me at Brian, BRIAN, at goldfingerlaw.com.
And go Raptors go.
Go Raptors
go.
Yeah. But go Raptors go in the springtime. Let's just I don't want them to be so good right now and peak at the wrong time, pardon me. Peak at the right time. These losses are okay.
Again, they got the Celtics on Friday.
Yeah, if they take a loss, nobody's winning a trophy tomorrow night. Nobody's winning a trophy.
I'm already.
It's a process, Grant.
It's a process.
I'm already going that they're going to go winless for the rest of the campaign. So that's my thing. I'm a Toronto fan. I'm a Toronto sports fan. I know how this goes. I'm not new.
Cheer up, Buttercup.
Brian Goldfinger, of course, here on the Regulars. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you soon again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
There we go. Brian Goldfinger from Goldfinger Personal Injury Law.
You are a clever, resourceful man, Mr. Bond. Well, thank you. Perhaps too clever.
Regulars.